Welcome to the Spy Collection. My name is Anastasios, and in this episode we'll have a look at a knife with a not so well-known spy story. We're talking about this one, the Cold Steel Kobun. As we read in its manufacturer's page about its name, the Cold Steel Kobun is a lightweight knife that takes its name from the Japanese underworld, where the word Kobun is sometimes used as an indicator of rank that suggests the word soldier, or one who takes orders from a soyabun or boss. It's a fitting name for a knife like the Kobun, which was effectively designed to be a good soldier. Let's unbox it. What really stands out for us is how slim its handle is, and overall lightweight considering its total size. And we aren't alone in this. Those features made it an excellent tool for concealed carry. In terms of its sharpness, it's not that great, but that can be easily fixed with a little bit of sharpening. But regardless, how is this related to espionage? After the 9/11 terrorist attack in the US, the then US President George W. Bush was given a few different options on how to respond. The one that he used was to covertly deploy a group of CIA paramilitary officers, along with some attached members of the US Special Forces, undercover in Afghanistan, to partner with local militias and tribes in order to fight all the groups and individuals associated with the attack. As CIA wrote about it, in the aftermath of the tragic terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, President George W. Bush ordered Director of Central Intelligence George Tenet to launch operations against the Al-Qa'ida terrorist organization and its Taliban supporters in Afghanistan. This order called for the CIA to collect real-time, actionable intelligence to help shape the battlefield and to use all means to target Al-Qa'ida. Within 15 days of the attacks on US soil, the first team of CIA officers was on the ground and operating in Afghanistan, some 8,000 miles from home. This rapid deployment was possible because the CIA had developed and nurtured relationships with the Afghan Northern Alliance for several years prior to 9/11. Because of this thorough, low-key and persistent effort, CIA officers knew the language, the history, and the culture of the region and were in position to move quickly against the terrorists. In addition to being first on the ground in October 2001, the CIA team was able to quickly amass an enormous body of information and a large stable of assets to launch rapid and robust efforts against the Taliban. As the weeks unfolded, a core group of more than 100 CIA officers, primarily operations and paramilitary officers, as well as officers from the Directorate of Support, all highly experienced leaders, known for their independence, skill, initiative, and bravery, worked with some 300 US Special Forces personnel and partnered with local tribal and military forces. Team members took risks and worked with key groups in the area, doing whatever was necessary to accomplish the mission. One of those men was CIA officer Gary Schroen. In 2011, he gave this interview for CBS, summarizing this covert operation.
By the time bombing started, the CIA's Gary Schroen had been on the ground for nearly 2 weeks. One last mission for a 59-year-old man who on 9/11 had been filling out his retirement papers.
Everybody in the United States wanted to be the first person to go after bin Laden and get this hunt going, and here they had given me that role.
Schroen, who had spent 32 years as a covert operator, was to lead a small team of Americans, shown here with their faces blurred in a photo released by the CIA. The CIA's chief of counterterrorism gave him explicit orders to kill.
I want you to cut bin Laden's head off, put it on dry ice, and send it back to me so I can show the president.
Was he serious?
Yeah, I think so.
CIA pilots flew the team, codenamed JAWBREAKER, in a Russian helicopter over a 14,000-foot pass into northern Afghanistan, armed with a small fortune.
We had $3 million in cash, in $100 bills that were non-sequential and shrink-wrapped in $100,000 bundles.
How heavy is $3 million?
It's about 50 pounds.
50 pounds of cash?
Yeah, 50 pounds of cash.
That one helicopter, which not by accident had the tail number 91101, was their only way in and their only way out. There was no rescue plan.
The military said that it was too dangerous to send their personnel in, and so we went by ourselves.
The CIA and military now work closely together in operations like the bin Laden raid. It wasn't like that at the beginning.
The whole U.S. military was caught flat-footed. I don't think anyone had ever raised the issue, how do we go into Afghanistan?
The CIA team linked up with fighters from the Northern Alliance who were trying to break through Taliban front lines and head for Kabul. They couldn't do it without U.S. airstrikes.
Who's directing the bombing?
Nobody was calling the shots. It was almost useless bombing because we really weren't impacting the front lines, which is where the Taliban fighters were hunkered down.
It took another 2 weeks for American Special Forces to arrive with laser devices to pinpoint the targets. Then the bombing finally began shifting to the front lines. Once it did,
our guys were listening to the radios, and the panic, the screaming, the shouting, as bunkers, down the line were going up from 2,000-pound bombs. I mean, they were just simply devastated. And they broke.
Kabul fell to the Northern Alliance within a week. By then, Schroen had spent $5.2 million, which turned out to be just the first down payment on a war which has now cost some $450 billion.
Schroen's team of CIA officers for Operation JAWBREAKER carried whatever they could obtain that they assumed would help them succeed. Among them, a knife like this. As we read in CIA's museum, CIA officer Gary Schroen was starting his transition to retirement, but after 9/11 he volunteered to service and lead Operation JAWBREAKER into Afghanistan. He carried this knife with him in the war zone. Notice that the brand isn't visible in this photo. However, in a more recent photograph from CIA's museum, this one from 2022, we can actually see that was the Cold Steel Kobun knife. Reasonably, Cold Steel also took advantage of this unexpected advertisement and occasionally refers to the CIA publication for this knife. For instance, in this 2019 Facebook post we read, "Kobun, soldier. We've been making the Kobun since 1996. One knife proven over 23 years and still kicking. Many of you are aware of its history. Some may not be. It will, however, be famous in the CIA museum for its use in Operation JAWBREAKER. Ultra-light, thin but stout, unbeatable Tanto point." And even his own book from 2005, titled First In, How 7 CIA Officers Opened the War on Terror in Afghanistan, which we highly recommend by the way, Gary Schroen wrote that. As Stan was finishing his review of the items he had obtained, Murray arrived with a box containing knives for the team. There were Ken Kershaw folding knives with belt clips featuring a razor-sharp, spring-loaded 3-inch blade with an interior lock to keep the blade in place. A flick of the thumb opened the blade with an impressive snap. There was also a variety of longer belt knives. I selected a Japanese-made knife with a 5-inch Tanto-style blade. We were impressed with Mary's selection and his initiative because none of us had mentioned the need for knives. And that was the story of a nearly 30-year-old knife model from Cold Steel, with its lesser-known spy history for CIA's early covert operations in Afghanistan. Gary Schroen's knife is still on display at CIA Spy Museum, located at its headquarters, but that museum is closed to the general public. Nevertheless, this story showed us once again how commercially available items are becoming parts of significant covert operations, which is why nothing is as it seems.